Governor Newsom, I extend a formal welcome to Washington, Senator JD. Vance's voice projected through the densely packed Senate hearing room with the precision of a sharpened blade, appearing calm and measured on the surface, but concealing something frigid and acute underneath. I am aware that you are accustomed to the political climate of California, where it appears that no entity holds you to account, a place where you are at liberty to dine at restaurants charging $300 per plate, while simultaneously instructing the populace to remain confined within their homes, and where you can expend $40 billion only to exacerbate existing problems. But today marks a departure from that norm because I possess inquiries and you are compelled to answer them under oath. The Senate hearing chamber was occupied to its maximum capacity with every seat taken. The C-SPAN cameras were rolling with intensity. The studio lights were hot, and the atmosphere in the gallery was thick with tension, filled with the faces of California. These were the faces of individuals who had lost their businesses, parents whose children had fallen behind in their education, and families who had been driven out of the state by costs they could no longer sustain, all of whom had traveled here to witness someone finally pose the questions they had been asking for years. Newsom entered with his signature confidence and that practiced smile, his hair impeccable and his suit expensive, embodying the smooth politician and the golden boy of California who viewed himself as a future presidential candidate, or so he believed. Vance observed him as he settled into the witness chair, adjusting the microphone and glancing at his legal team with a slight smirk that suggested he felt this proceeding was beneath him, viewing it as merely another political stunt or a session he could charm his way through, but it was time to wipe that expression away. Let us commence with a simple inquiry, Governor, regarding your whereabouts on the night of November 6, 2020. Newsom opened his mouth to formulate a response, but Vance raised a hand to interject, stating that he would save him the trouble of fabricating an answer by informing him that he was at the French Laundry restaurant in Napa Valley, accompanied by 11 other individuals, none of whom were wearing masks, while the state of California was burning, and asked if he wished to explain that scenario. The smirk faded just a fraction, but it was enough to signal that the hearing had truly begun. For now, the governor expected the committee to believe this was merely a dinner, an innocent birthday gathering for a lobbyist, at an establishment where the wine list features prices higher than what most Californians earn in an entire month. He projected an attitude of nothing to see here, characterizing it as a casual get-together that just happened to include the CEO of the California Medical Association, the very same medical association that was spending millions of dollars on advertisements instructing the public to wear masks, while paradoxically, nobody at that specific table was wearing a mask. It was portrayed as totally normal and appropriate, just another Tuesday for California's elite who were breaking the rules they forced everyone else to follow. But the situation worsened because there were photographs, not merely speculation or rumors, but clear images from Fox 11 Los Angeles, showing the entire table of 12 people, packed shoulder to shoulder, laughing, eating, and drinking wine that costs more per bottle than a week's worth of groceries. There were zero masks, zero social distancing, and zero adherence to the rules that the governor had told 6 million California school children they were required to follow. Governor, I am examining these photos at this moment, which Fox 11 obtained and published for the entire country to see. So let me describe what I perceive. A private room with walls on 3 sides and a sliding glass door on the 4th, and the door is closed because your party was so loud that other diners complained, forcing the restaurant to close the door and creating an enclosed space for indoor dining, which you had just told Californians was too dangerous. Newsom shifted in his seat and cleared his throat, attempting to explain that the dinner took place in Napa County, which was in the orange tier at the time and allowed for such gatherings. But Vance interrupted, stating that he was not inquiring about county rules, but rather about the governor's rules, the ones he imposed on California, and went on television to announce, asking if those rules stated that indoor dining was safe. A silence stretching 5 and then 10 seconds filled the room before Newsom claimed the restaurant said it was outdoor dining. But Vance countered that it was not, pointing out that the photos showed a closed room and citing a witness, another diner that night, who described the party as very loud and confirmed the sliding doors were closed because of the noise. It was a closed door, Governor, creating an indoor space and constituting indoor dining at a time when you told California restaurants they could not operate indoors, causing restaurant owners to go bankrupt following your orders while you broke your own rules. Vance retrieved a document and held it up, a gesture that made the point that this was evidence and documentation that would not disappear, and proceeded to discuss the attendees, specifically mentioning Jason Kinney, a political consultant and lobbyist, asking if this was his birthday party. When Newsom tried to deflect by calling Jason a longtime friend, Vance pressed for a yes or no answer, causing Newsom's jaw to tighten as he admitted yes. Vance then asked how much the dinner cost per person that night, and when Newsom claimed not to recall the exact figure, Vance noted that the French Laundry's tasting menu runs between $295 and $350 per person before wine, tax, or tip, so estimating it at $300 meant a $3,600 dinner for 12 people in one night, while Californians were losing their jobs because the governor shut down their workplaces, asking if that seemed appropriate. Newsom admitted the dinner was a mistake and that he had apologized, but Vance quoted his apology where he stated his mistake was sitting down instead of walking back to his car, implying the error was in the physical act of sitting rather than the hypocrisy of dining maskless with lobbyists while California suffered. The gallery began to stir with low murmurs as people shifted, sensing this was not going well for Newsom, a fact even he could feel. Let us discuss your dining companions, specifically Dustin Corcoran, the CEO of the California Medical Association, to your right, and Janice Norman, the CMA lobbyist, to your left. And I ask if you know what the California Medical Association was doing that month, Governor, because they were running television commercials and billboards urging Californians to mask up to save lives. Vance paused to let that sink in, pointing out that their CEO and top lobbyist sat at the governor's table maskless, inches from other people, violating the very guidance their organization was promoting, and asked if that struck him as hypocritical. When Newsom claimed they were following county guidelines and the restaurant's assurances, Vance commanded him to stop making it worse, asserting that the issue was not what the restaurant told him, but what he told everyone else. Noting that 10 days before this dinner, he held a press conference telling Californians to limit gatherings to a maximum of 3 households. Vance noted the dinner had 12 people and asked how many households that represented. And after a long pause where Newsom looked at his lawyer, he claimed they didn't specify, but Vance cited the San Francisco Chronicle, reporting it was more than 3 households, which Newsom did not dispute. You violated your own 3-household rule. You violated indoor dining guidance. You partied with lobbyists and medical executives who were lecturing everyone else about safety, and you did it at a $300 per person restaurant, while small business owners you had shut down were filing for bankruptcy. Newsom's voice climbed half an octave, subtle but noticeable, as he reiterated that he apologized and called it a bad mistake, asking what more was wanted. Vance replied that he wanted accountability, because after that little mistake, California restaurant owners watched him on television eating indoors without a mask, ignoring his own rules, and they were furious because they had been shut down, lost their livelihoods, and had their dreams destroyed because the governor said restaurants were too dangerous. But apparently, that applied only to their restaurants and not the French Laundry. Vance's voice dropped to a quieter, more dangerous register as he introduced Maria Chen, asking her to stand in the 3rd row of the gallery, revealing a woman of Asian descent in her late 40s with tired eyes. Maria owned a restaurant in Sacramento called Chen's Kitchen, a business with family recipes and a 20-year reputation for good food and loyal customers, which the governor shut down in March 2020 via a state order for public health. Maria complied because she is a rule follower who believed the governor when he said it was temporary. So she waited, burned through her savings, took loans, and waited more, as he kept her closed for months, while she applied for every grant and assistance program, most of which never came through. By November 2020, she was drowning and about to lose everything, and the room fell silent as everyone watched Maria standing with hands clasped. Then she saw the news on November 18th featuring photos of the governor at the French Laundry, dining indoors, maskless, and laughing with lobbyists, while spending more on one meal than she had taken home in profit for months, all while her restaurant stayed closed by his order. Vance asked how the governor thought that made Maria feel, and Newsom could not look at her, staring at the table with his jaw working. Maria lost her restaurant in February 2021 to foreclosure. 20 years gone because the governor said dining was too dangerous, unless he was the one doing the dining, in which case exceptions applied, but for Maria, there were no exceptions, just closure, bankruptcy, and 20 years of work destroyed. Vance let the silence stretch for 20 or 30 seconds, with only the sounds of breathing and the weight of truth filling the room. You called it a bad mistake, Governor, but bad mistakes are human. Whereas this was a choice. You chose to violate your own rules. You chose elitism over leadership, and you chose luxury while Californians suffered. And that was not a mistake. That is who you are. Newsom kept his mouth closed, having nothing to say because the photos existed. The hypocrisy was undeniable, and Maria was right there, visible and real. Vance called for a 5-minute recess, advising the governor to use the time to think about his next answers, because what they had just covered was merely the appetizer and the main course was coming. When the hearing resumed, Vance was back in position while Newsom looked smaller somehow, his confidence fading as lawyers whispered to him, and he nodded, trying to straighten up and present that smooth image, but something had shifted that everyone felt. Governor, let us discuss children, education, and your priorities, specifically noting that you kept California schools closed longer than almost any other state. When Newsom claimed they followed expert guidance and CDC recommendations to prioritize safety, Vance demanded a yes or no answer regarding whether California kept schools closed longer than most states, extracting a reluctant yes. Vance confirmed that public schools in Sacramento County, where the governor lives, stayed closed through most of 2020 and into 2021. And while Newsom tried to attribute this to local districts, Vance pressed on. Do you have children, Governor? And upon confirming he has 4 children aged 4, 7, 9, and 11 at the time, Vance asked where they attended school during the pandemic. The pause indicated Newsom knew where this was going, but he had to answer under oath that they attended a private school in Sacramento, a private school that remained open for in-person learning while public schools stayed closed. Vance clarified that the school followed a hybrid model with in-person learning, and the yes hung in the air as an admission and a confession of the double standard laid bare. So, the governor kept public schools closed for the safety of other people's children, deeming it too dangerous for them. But for his 4 children, the story was different. Private school in-person learning was safe enough for them, creating a situation where there is one set of rules for those who can afford $20,000 a year in tuition, and another set for everyone else. Governor, let me read you some statistics from the Census Pulse Household Survey conducted in 2020, which found that 43% of low-income California households did not always have internet available for educational purposes, meaning nearly half of low-income families lacked reliable internet for distance learning. Newsom claimed they provided resources and hotspots to bridge the digital divide, but Vance pressed if he was aware of the connectivity challenges, to which Newsom admitted yes. Yet you kept schools closed and required distance learning for children whose families could not provide internet while your children attended in-person classes, and when Newsom tried to blame local districts for the reopening decisions, Vance dismantled that defense by pointing out that the governor imposed state-level restrictions, created tier systems, threatened funding, and pressured teacher unions, making reopening so complicated and burdensome that most districts gave up. Vance produced another document from the Public Policy Institute of California, stating that distance learning has widened gaps for children of color, children in low-income families, and children of less educated parents, noting that the governor's policies widened educational gaps and worsened inequality for the most vulnerable children. Meanwhile, your children thrived in private school, with small classes and face-to-face teaching, suffering no widening gaps, while other people's children fell behind by 2, 3, or even 4 years, creating an entire generation that was damaged. Newsom tried to respond that every parent wants the best for their children, but Vance countered that while every parent wants the best, not every parent can afford private school or has choices. Most parents have public schools, the very schools the governor kept closed while sending his own children to private schools that stayed open. When Newsom claimed the circumstances were complicated, Vance rejected it, stating it was not complicated but rather a matter of privilege, as he had access to private education and used it while implementing policies that insulated his family from consequences that millions of others suffered. Let me tell you about Sarah Mitchell, who is here today in the 4th row. A white woman in her mid-30s stood up looking exhausted. Sarah is a single mother with 2 kids, aged 12 and 9, who attend public school in Sacramento, the same district as the governor's neighborhood. Yet her kids stayed home for over a year doing distance learning. Sarah worked full-time from home as an administrative assistant, trying to work and supervise 2 kids on Zoom, which was impossible, resulting in her son falling 2 grade levels behind in math, and her daughter developing depression and stopping eating regularly due to the isolation mandated by the governor. Sarah stood there while people in the gallery looked at her and others looked at Newsom, who was staring at his hands. Sarah could not afford private school or tutors and did her best, but 3 hours a week of live instruction was not close to enough, and her children suffered academically, emotionally, and psychologically, while the governor's children learned normally in classrooms. Vance leaned forward, noting the real irony that the governor personally attended private schools his entire life. Catholic Elementary, Redwood High, and Santa Clara University, knowing their value and advantages, yet as an adult opposes school choice and vouchers, saying private and charter schools have no place in California while utilizing them for his own children. Newsom finally looked up with a strained voice, claiming he supports public education and that his position on school choice is about protecting public school funding, to which Vance retorted that his position is about protecting a system he does not use or trust for his own children, which is pure, simple, and undeniable hypocrisy. Vance shuffled papers, the sound loud in the quiet room, summarizing that 2 scandals down the French Laundry and school closures revealed a pattern of elite privilege, where rules applied to regular people but exemptions applied to the governor. The gallery murmured louder than before, as agreement spread that this was not just politics, but personal, involving their lives and struggles. Vance continued, stating that actions speak louder than beliefs, and while the governor can claim to believe in public schools, he chose private ones. Switching topics, Vance brought up the governor's promise of a Marshall Plan for homelessness from his January 2019 inaugural address, where he pledged to lift the fight against homelessness to a statewide mission backed by big spending. Vance noted the governor spent $37 billion with a B, enough money to house every homeless person multiple times over. Yet, reasonable people ask what was achieved for that sum. Vance asked how much California had spent on homelessness since January 2019, and after consulting lawyers, Newsom admitted approximately $37 to $40 billion. Vance then asked if the homeless population increased or decreased during that period, and Newsom reluctantly admitted there was an increase of approximately 36,000 individuals, meaning that after spending $40 billion, the number of homeless people rose from 151,000 to 187,000, a 24% increase. Vance produced a report from the California State Auditor, issued in April 2024, quoting that the state lacks current information on the ongoing costs and outcomes of its homelessness programs because the agency the governor created has not consistently tracked and evaluated efforts. Newsom tried to be defensive, but Vance pressed on whether the agency tracked spending, eventually extracting an admission that data collection became less consistent and that they stopped analyzing spending data in June 2021. Vance highlighted that for 3 years there was no analysis and no tracking of billions of dollars, emphasizing that the governor's own auditors stated they lacked a proper system to begin with. Here is the math, Governor. $40 billion divided by 151,000 homeless people equals approximately $260,000 per person. With that money, you could have bought each person a $200,000 home and given them $60,000 for furniture and job training. But instead, the crisis worsened. Vance noted the auditor found no consistent method for gathering information, deleted records in the database, and overstated program participation, meaning the numbers used were not reliable. Vance cited specific examples like San Jose and San Diego, neither of which could provide exact accounting of how money was spent or evaluate if nonprofits were effective, mentioning a San Diego shelter contract for $1.6 million that did not even specify how many people should be served. When Newsom attempted a complexity argument, Vance shut him down, stating he was asking how success is measured without metrics. Vance added that a federal audit of California's Department of Housing and Community Development gave the lowest possible score for inadequate fraud detection, comparing it to the $32 billion unemployment fraud scandal. Vance's voice dropped lower as he pointed out that after all this failure, the governor blamed local governments and threatened to cut their funding, despite giving them only annual grants that prevented long-term planning. The room was completely silent as the documented failure landed. $40 billion spent, 36,000 more homeless, and no accountability. Newsom tried to deflect by saying every state struggled with homelessness during the pandemic, but Vance countered that every state did not spend $40 billion to make it worse, which is unique to California and Newsom's leadership. Vance walked around his desk to introduce Marcus Thompson, a black man in his late 30s with military bearing standing in the gallery. Marcus served in Afghanistan in the Marine Corps as a combat engineer and came home with PTSD, applying for VA benefits in Sacramento, only to have his paperwork lost twice, resulting in him living on Skid Row in Los Angeles for 2 years. While the governor spent $40 billion, Marcus stood motionless, embodying the weight of the injustice. Marcus eventually got help not from the state, but from a private charity operating on donations, which housed him and sorted his paperwork for a total cost of approximately $8,000. Vance highlighted the devastating contrast. The state spent $260,000 per person on average and could not help Marcus, while a private charity did it for $8,000. Marcus wants to know where his $260,000 went. Governor, and so does every Californian. Newsom barely audibly claimed they funded multiple programs, but Vance cut him off, identifying the pandemic as his crutch for every failure. Vance returned to his seat, listing the 3 scandals: French laundry hypocrisy, private school hypocrisy, and $40 billion disappeared into untracked programs with a worsening crisis. The gallery erupted into anger, with people shouting, "Where's my money?" until Vance raised a hand to restore order, noting the energy had turned hostile. "We will take a 15-minute recess," Vance announced, advising the governor to consult his lawyers because they were about to discuss why his failures were driving people out, noting that companies were fleeing California like entities escaping a sinking vessel. When the hearing resumed, Vance described California as the Golden State that was losing its status because major corporations and families were heading for the exits to Texas, Florida, Nevada, and Tennessee. Vance asked the governor to name 3 major companies that moved their headquarters out of California in the last 5 years, and when Newsom hesitated, Vance provided the list: Tesla to Austin, Oracle to Austin, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise to Houston, Charles Schwab to Westlake, Chevron to Houston after 145 years, SpaceX to Texas, X, formerly Twitter, to Texas, and In-N-Out Burger to Tennessee. Vance cited a Hoover Institution report stating 74 corporate headquarters left in just the first half of 2021, calling it an exodus rather than a business cycle. He quoted Elon Musk calling California policies the final straw, and Chevron CEO Mike Wirth describing policies as restrictive. Vance focused on taxes, noting California has the highest corporate tax rate at 8.84% and the highest personal income tax rate at 13.3%, contrasting this with zero state income tax in Texas, Florida, Nevada, and Tennessee. Vance displayed population data showing 200,000 net migration out of California, turning a $97 billion surplus into a projected $70 billion deficit, a $167 billion swing, because the tax base is fleeing. Newsom tried to defend the economy as the 5th largest in the world, but Vance countered that the companies that built that economy have left. Vance played an audio clip of James Martinez, a manufacturer who moved his business to Arizona because he could not compete with California's taxes and regulations, taking 70 jobs with him. Vance read the list of departed companies again: Tesla, Oracle, HP, Chevron, In-N-Out, letting the reality sink in that each departure took jobs, tax revenue, and future growth. Newsom's voice became defensive, calling it political rhetoric, but Vance silenced him by pointing out the budget deficit as proof of a dying economy. Vance connected the scandals: waste money on homelessness, need more revenue, raise taxes, drive businesses away, lose revenue, and raise taxes again in a death spiral. "You are dismantling California, Governor. Not theoretically, but actually. While you dine at French restaurants and send your kids to private schools." The gallery murmured agreement as Vance moved to the topic of safety, specifically Proposition 47, and the retail theft explosion. He explained that Prop 47 made theft under $950 a misdemeanor with practically no consequences, leading to essentially legal shoplifting where thieves walked in, grabbed merchandise, and walked out while staff were told not to intervene. Newsom supported Prop 47 as criminal justice reform, and for 5 years of theft and store closures, he did nothing until election pressure forced his hand. Vance established that Newsom supported Prop 47 and knew about the reports of massive theft increases from Safeway, Target, and Rite Aid. Yet his solution was merely to create task forces while businesses closed. Vance presented statistics showing commercial burglary increased dramatically after Prop 47, with Fresno up 38%, LA up 29%, and Alameda up 64%. He noted that nearly 50% of San Francisco Union Square stores closed because they could not operate profitably. Newsom tried to claim he signed legislation in 2024, but Vance pointed out that was 10 years after Prop 47 passed, characterizing the delay as cowardice. Vance introduced Jennifer Nguyen, a Vietnamese woman in the gallery who managed a CVS in San Francisco's Tenderloin district for 20 years until it closed due to rampant theft. Jennifer filed hundreds of police reports that went unanswered because police wouldn't come for misdemeanors under $950. One thief told her, "What are you going to do? Call the cops? They don't care." And he was right. Jennifer lost her job because of the governor's policy, and Vance asked if Newsom could answer her. Newsom mumbled about the frustration being challenging, to which Vance replied that losing a 20-year career is catastrophic, not challenging. Vance listed the consequences: workers losing jobs, communities losing services, and food deserts forming. The gallery became angry again, shouting for an answer, as Vance summarized the 5 scandals, adding retail theft to the list. More people, including Newsom's own staff, were seen walking out of the hearing room, creating the audible sound of abandonment. Vance moved to the core issue: the cost of living and the reality that Newsom lives in a different California than everyone else. He described the dream of California dying as home prices hit $700,000 for a starter home. Gas cost $2 to $3 more per gallon than in other states, and groceries cost 30% more. Vance noted that regular people, like teachers and nurses, can no longer afford to live where they work, leading to the exodus of 200,000 people. When asked about the median home price and income, Newsom admitted the gap, and Vance calculated that a family needs to save $140,000 for a down payment while paying $3,000 a month in rent. A mathematical impossibility. Vance analyzed the budget of the Rodriguez family in San Jose, showing that on $52,000 a year, they are broke every month after rent, gas, and groceries. They don't go to French restaurants. They just try to survive in the state the governor governs. Vance noted that 1/3 of California households live in or near poverty. He stood up to deliver the final indictment, reviewing the 6 failures: French laundry hypocrisy, private school hypocrisy, $40 billion wasted on homelessness, business exodus, retail theft explosion, and the cost of living nightmare. The common thread was different rules for different people. One, California for elites like Newsom, and another for everyone else. Vance removed his glasses and spoke from the heart about his own upbringing in poverty in Appalachia. Knowing what struggle feels like, he contrasted this with Newsom's wealth and bubble, stating that the governor does not feel accountability because he has never experienced the consequences of his policies. Vance pointed to Maria, Sarah, Marcus, Jennifer, and the Rodriguez family as the real California, the ones who are done with excuses. Newsom sat completely broken and silent, unable to defend himself as the gallery erupted in a standing ovation for the truth finally being spoken. Vance let the applause continue before adjourning the hearing. Within an hour, social media exploded with clips of the takedown trending worldwide. The evidence was so overwhelming that even liberal media outlets struggled to defend Newsom. His national political ambitions evaporated instantly, as he could not run for president after being exposed as a hypocrite under oath. Donors abandoned him, and his staff began looking for new jobs. Maria Chen eventually received a call from a private investor who saw her story and offered to back the reopening of her restaurant, which she did with the support of a crowdfunding campaign funded by strangers who felt her pain. Marcus Thompson started a nonprofit for veterans using a simple, direct aid model that achieved a 94% success rate, proving that bureaucracy was the problem. Jennifer Nguyen became a voice for retail workers, writing op-eds that resonated because they were honest about the failure of policies she once voted for. Proposition 36 passed overwhelmingly, rolling back Prop 47 despite Newsom's opposition. The hearing defined Newsom's legacy as a failed governor who could not track spending or take accountability. California deserved better, and the hearing proved that accountability, evidence, and direct questions matter. Democracy requires leaders who live by the same rules they impose. And for 3 hours, the truth was laid bare for the world to see. The pandemic is not your excuse, Governor. It is your crutch. Vance walked back to his seat and sat down looking directly at Newsom, listing 3 scandals now including the French laundry elite, hypocrisy private schools demonstrating rules for thee, and now this $40 billion disappeared into programs he did not track, systems he did not monitor, and results he cannot measure. With the homeless crisis worse than when he started his agency, when having stopped analyzing data 3 years ago. Cities, unable to account for spending federal auditors, stating he has no fraud prevention. And his own state auditor stating he lacks current information on costs and outcomes. Yet he blames local governments pausing to let the silence build, like pressure crushing the room, stating that is not governance. Governor, that is negligence on a scale so massive it defies comprehension, involving $40 billion, which is more than the entire budget of some states, just gone with nothing to show for it, except more homeless people, more encampments, and more suffering, causing the gallery to erupt, now not into applause, but into anger, with shouting and chairs scraping, as several people stood and security moved towards someone yelling, "Where is my money?" while others joined in. Vance raised a hand and gradually quiet returned. But the energy had changed, becoming hostile now and dangerous, which Newsom felt shrinking in his chair, leading Vance to announce a 15-minute recess, advising the governor to consult with his lawyers, because they were about to discuss why his failures are not just waste, but are driving people out, noting that companies are fleeing California like rats from a sinking ship, and stating he does not blame them, promising to discuss that when they return to California, the Golden State, the land of opportunity, Silicon Valley, Hollywood, the 5th largest economy in the world, or rather, it was because companies are leaving, not merely a few, and not gradually, but in a flood involving major corporations, household names, tech giants, financial firms, energy companies, and manufacturers, all heading for the exits to Texas, Florida, Nevada, and Tennessee. Anywhere but California, the governor claims everything is fine and the economy is great, urging people not to believe the exodus, characterizing it as just a normal business cycle with nothing to worry about. But the exodus is real. It is documented. It is accelerating, and it is taking jobs, tax revenue, and California's future with it. But why listen to me? Let us hear from someone who left. Someone who built a business in California, believed in California, loved California, and finally gave up. Governor, can you name 3 major companies that have moved their headquarters out of California in the last 5 years? Newsom hesitated, realizing this was a trap where any answer was wrong, claiming there have been some relocations, but many companies maintain significant presence. So Vance took that as a no and offered to help listing. Tesla, which moved its headquarters to Austin, Texas in October 2021. Oracle, which moved to Austin in December 2020. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise to Houston in 2020. Charles Schwab to Westlake, Texas in 2020. Chevron to Houston in August 2024 after 45 years in California. SpaceX to Texas in July 2024. X, formerly Twitter, to Texas in July 2024, and In-N-Out Burger to Tennessee in 2025, asking if he should continue because each name hit like a ply drum beat. Relentless and undeniable, gone all, gone. Citing a Hoover Institution report from 2021 stating 74 corporate headquarters left California in just the first half of that year. 74 in 6 months is not a normal business cycle, Governor. That is an exodus. Vance pulled up another document asking if he wanted to know what these CEOs said about leaving, starting with Elon Musk, who said California policies, including a law the governor signed about schools not informing parents about students' gender identity, were the final straw. attacking both families and companies, noting that his law drove out the world's richest man. And when Newsom tried to interrupt, claiming Elon Musk's political positions are irrelevant to the business reality. Vance cited Chevron CEO Mike Wirth in 2019, quoting that the policies in California have become pretty restrictive on a lot of business fronts, noting he was polite. So, Vance offered to be clearer, stating that your taxes are the highest in the nation, with a corporate tax rate of 8.84% and a personal income tax rate of 13.3%, which is the highest. Not tied for highest, but the highest. In the entire country, Vance stood again, pacing slightly as the facts poured out, noting Texas has 0 state income tax, Florida has 0 state income tax, Nevada has 0 state income tax, and Tennessee has 0 state income tax, asking if he sees the pattern. Companies calculate taxes, add regulations, factor cost of living, compare California to other states, and they leave and every single month to more announce moves, because the math does not work anymore. He pulled up population data, noting it is not just companies but people are leaving too, citing 200,000 net migration from California between 2024 and 2025, meaning 200,000 more people left than arrived, which is a small city gone every year, taking their tax dollars with them, the implications being obvious and devastating. Asking if he wants to know what happens when companies and people leave, noting that revenue drops, reminding him that he had a $97 billion surplus in the 2021-2022 budget. Yet 2 years later, projected a $50 to $70 billion deficit in the 2025 to 2026 budget, representing a $167 billion swing, because the tax base is fleeing. Newsom became defensive, claiming California's economy remains the 5th largest in the world, and that they are still the center of innovation. But Vance corrected him, stating past tense, because Tesla is gone, Oracle is gone, Hewlett-Packard is gone, and those are the companies that made Silicon Valley, that built California's tech economy, and they left, and they are not coming back. Future companies are not coming to California. They are starting in Austin, Miami, Nashville, anywhere. But here Vance played an audio clip of a voice stating, "I loved California. Built my business there in Orange County for 15 years with 200 employees. But between the taxes, the regulations, and the costs, I could not compete with companies in other states that had margins I could not match. So I had to choose to move or close. So I moved, taking 70 jobs to Arizona, and would have taken all 200. But some people could not afford to leave California, even though they wanted to." The recording ended, and Vance identified it as James Martinez in manufacturing, who testified earlier to this committee, noting he is not alone, and that thousands of business owners are making the same calculation to stay and struggle or leave and thrive, and most are leaving. He pulled out a list on actual paper, visible, and started reading slowly, letting each name register. Tesla, gone. Oracle, gone. Hewlett, Packard Enterprise, gone. Charles Schwab, gone. Palantir, gone. CBRE, gone. McKesson, gone. Chevron, after 145 years in California, gone. SpaceX, gone. X, gone. In-N-Out Burger, a California icon on every cup and every wrapper containing California DNA, gone to Tennessee. Long pause to let it sink in. In-N-Out left California. Think about that each company that left took jobs, tax revenue, investment, future growth, economic activity, all gone and more, leaving every month, more headquarters announcing, more families packing U-Hauls, more businesses closing your policies. Governor, your taxes, your regulations, your failure driving them out the gallery, murmuring agreement with some nodding people who had watched companies leave their communities, watched tax bases erode, and watched neighbors move away. Newsom's voice climbing defensive, calling this political rhetoric, claiming California's economy is strong, having the most venture capital investment, the most startups, and the most innovation. But Vance corrected him again, saying, had governor had past tense, because they are leaving, they left. They are gone. And you keep talking about California's economy like it is 2015, but it is not. It is 2026, and your economy is collapsing. And do you know how? I know, because your budget, 97 billion surplus, became a 70 billion deficit, which does not happen in strong economies, that happens in dying ones. Vance sat back down, looking directly at Newsom, his voice quieter but more intense, citing 4 scandals. Now, Governor. And they connect, asking if he sees the ammunition pattern. You waste money on homelessness, $40 billion. Get no results. Need more revenue. Raise taxes. Businesses leave. Lose revenue. Raise taxes again. More businesses leave. It is a death spiral, and you are accelerating it. Every tax increase drives more companies away. Every regulation pushes more families out. Every failure makes the next failure inevitable, pausing to let the logic become inescapable, stating, you are killing California governor, not in some abstract way, not theoretically, but actually. Killing it, the jobs, the growth, the future, all dying under your leadership. While you dine at French restaurants and send your kids to private schools, while you spend billions with no accountability, while you blame everyone but yourself. California is not the Golden State anymore. It is the Exodus state. And you made it that way. Newsom, struggling now with his voice strained, claiming California remains a beacon. But Vance cut him off, calling it a beacon of failure, a warning sign, a case study in how not to govern, noting that other states watch you and learn what to avoid: your policies, your priorities, your waste. They are teaching their business schools about your failures, using California as the example of government incompetence, and that is your legacy. Chairs scraping in the back, doors opening, people leaving, not all from the gallery, but some of Newsom's own staff, quietly trying not to be noticed, but visible and audible, representing the sound of abandonment. Let us continue, Governor, because killing the economy is bad, but at least the people who stayed are safe. Right. At least you protected them from crime. At least streets are secure. Oh, wait. Let us talk about Proposition 47 and the retail theft. Explosion. You enabled. Proposition 47, the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. A beautiful name, very reassuring and evocative, making you think neighborhoods got safer and schools got better and communities improved, representing progress. Except that is not what happened. What happened was shoplifting became essentially legal. Theft under $950 became a misdemeanor with no jail time, no real consequences. Just a slap on the wrist, warning not to do it again. But if you do, same thing. Misdemeanor release, repeat. And what did criminals do when they learned there were no consequences? They stole a lot every day, every store, constantly walking in, grabbing merchandise, walking out, while store workers could not stop them, trained not to intervene, because it was too dangerous, and police would not come for under $950 because it was not worth their time, and district attorneys would not prosecute misdemeanors due to overcrowded courts. So there was no point. So criminals kept stealing and stealing and stealing until stores closed. Because who can stay in business when people just take your products? When inventory walks out the door daily, when nothing stops them? But Governor Newsom supported Proposition 47 from the beginning, calling it good policy, saying it reduced incarceration, representing criminal justice reform and progressive governance, and when stores started closing, when viral videos showed mobs ransacking shops, when retailers begged for help. The governor did nothing for 5 years, until election pressure forced his hand. 5 years of theft, 5 years of closures, 5 years of workers losing jobs because the governor thought criminals needed second chances more than workers needed jobs. Governor, you supported Proposition 47 when it was on the ballot in 2014. Correct. Newsom, careful now, stating the measure was designed to reduce mass incarceration and redirect resources to education and rehabilitation, but Vance pressed for a yes or no, asking if he supported Proposition 47 and extracting a yes. But the intent yes is sufficient, and Proposition 47 made theft of items valued under $950 a misdemeanor rather than a felony. Corrected. Reclassified certain offenses to address prison overcrowding, yes or no, yes. And after Proposition 47 passed, major retailers reported dramatic increases in shoplifting. Safeway reported 15% increases. Target reported increases up to 50% in some locations. Rite Aid and CVS both reported significant theft increases. Were you aware of these reports? Retail theft is a complex issue affected by multiple factors. Were you aware retailers reported massive theft increases? Yes or no? Yes, we heard from retailers. And what did you do about it? Pause, because the answer was nothing for 5 years. Nothing, except providing law enforcement grants and creating task forces to address organized retail theft. Investing millions in prosecution support task forces. You created task forces while store workers got assaulted, while businesses closed, while communities lost grocery stores and pharmacies. Task forces, that was your solution. Vance pulled statistics from a Public Policy Institute of California study, stating commercial burglary, that includes retail theft, over 950%. Dollars increased dramatically after Prop 47, noting Fresno up 38% from 2019 to 2022. Los Angeles up 29%. San Francisco up 26%. Alameda County up 64%. Orange County up 54%. Those numbers mean stores, real businesses, real people, losing jobs. He continued without pause, noting car break-ins jumped 21% in 2015, 27% in 2016, 24% in 2017, all after Prop 47, meaning people's cars getting ransacked, windows smashed, property stolen, because criminals learned there were no consequences. Your policy taught them that more statistics relentless, each one damning nearly 50% of San Francisco Union Square stores closed. 50%. Half gone. Luxury. Stores, department stores, small businesses, all closed because they could not operate profitably when people just steal inventory. Viral videos showed mobs of thieves, groups of 10 or 20 people running into stores, grabbing everything, running out. Nobody stopping them because Prop 47 made it pointless to stop them misdemeanors. No prosecution release. Repeat. Newsom tried defending, claiming we signed legislation in 2024 to address retail theft, created new penalties for serial offenders in 2024. But Prop 47 passed in 2014. That is 10 years. Governor, you did nothing substantive for 10 years. Then, in an election year when Proposition 36 qualified for the ballot to roll back Prop 47. Suddenly you signed legislation. Suddenly you cared, representing amazing timing. The sarcasm cutting want to know what law enforcement said about Prop 47 San Francisco. Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman in 2015 called it a Virtual get-out-of-jail-free card. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, a Democrat from your party, suggested the law explained crime increases in LA. So your own allies knew it was failing, told you it was failing, and you did. Nothing. For a decade, Vance's voice dropped, becoming more personal now, introducing Jennifer Nguyen, asking where she is, and a woman stood appearing Vietnamese in her 40s, with tired eyes and a worn face. Jennifer managed a CVS in San Francisco's Tenderloin district. For 20 years with the company, a good employee dedicated who watched theft explode after Proposition 47. Addicts would walk in, fill bags, and walk out. She was told not to intervene because it was too dangerous, representing policy and corporate liability. Jennifer still standing, everyone watching. She filed police reports anyway, hundreds of them. Documented every theft, every incident, nothing happened. Police would not come for under $950. Not enough staff, not worth time. Misdemeanors do not matter. The thieves came back. Same people every day. Sometimes multiple times a day they knew. There were no consequences. One guy told Jennifer, and this is a quote, "What are you going to do? Call the cops. They don't care." And he was right. They didn't care because your policy told them not. Too long. Pause the reality, sinking in. Eventually, CVS closed Jennifer's store. Not profitable. When people steal your inventory, when security costs more than sales, when staff gets threatened daily, CVS closed it. Jennifer lost her job after 20 years. A loyal employee did everything right, lost her job because of your policy. Jennifer's face impassive, but the pain visible in her eyes, her posture, the weight of injustice. She is here today. Governor, she wants to know why you let her story get robbed, why you did nothing, why her job mattered less than your political ideology, why criminals got second chances while she got unemployment. Can you answer her? Newsom couldn't look at her, stared at papers on the table, voice barely audible, stating, "I understand the frustration felt by retail workers and business. Owners' retail theft has been challenging," but Vance retorted, challenging her 20-year career ended. That is not challenging. That is catastrophic. For her, for her family, for thousands of retail workers who lost jobs when stores closed because of your policy, your support, and your inaction. Vance stood, walked toward Newsom's table, stating, "Jennifer is not alone. Thousands of retail workers lost jobs. Whole communities lost access to groceries, pharmacies, and basic goods because stores can't operate when theft is essentially legal. Old people who can't drive far to shop, they suffer poor neighborhoods, become food deserts because profitable stores close and nobody opens new ones. Your policy didn't just enable theft, it destroyed communities." The gallery became angry now, really angry, shouting with someone, yelling, "Answer her," and others joining security, moving Newsom shrinking, further order restored. Scandals, now. Governor French Laundry, hypocrisy. Private school hypocrisy. $40 billion homeless disaster business exodus. And this retail theft explosion, 10 years of stores, closing, workers losing jobs, communities losing services because you supported soft-on-crime policies, and when they failed, catastrophically failed, you did nothing for 10 years until voters forced your hand. That is not leadership. That is cowardice. More doors. Opening more people. Leaving not from the gallery anymore, but from his own section, staffers, allies walking out the sound, distinct, clear footsteps, doors clicking shut. Abandonment made audible. Newsom looked around, saw it happening. The betrayal, his own people leaving, face going pale. This wasn't just a bad hearing. This was collapse. Which brings us to the core issue. Governor, The common thread, through everything. The real problem, you live in a different California than everyone else. Different rules, different standards, different reality. You don't feel the costs regular people face, don't struggle with what they struggle with, don't understand what you've done because none of it affects you. Let's talk about that California, the one you created, the one regular people can't afford, the one that's crushing them the cost of living. Nightmare. California Dreaming. That was the song, The Promise. Come to California, build a life, start a business, buy a house, live the dream. Beach nearby, mountains visible, perfect weather, opportunity everywhere. The American dream with a Pacific view. That was the pitch. That was the promise. That was what people believed. But somewhere along the way, the dream died. Houses cost $700,000 median price for a basic home, not luxury, not beachfront. Basic starter homes, $700,000. Young families can't afford down payments, can't save enough. Priced out entirely, gas costs $2 more per gallon than Texas, sometimes $3 more. Fill your tank $80–90 weekly, multiple times commuting to. Work costs hundreds monthly. Just gas, not maintenance, not insurance, just fuel. Groceries cost 30% more than national average. Milk, eggs, bread, basic food, 30% more for the same products, same brands. Just California prices, electricity bills, double or triple other states. Summer air conditioning, hundreds per month, to stay cool in a state where temperatures hit 100 degrees. And regular people, teachers, nurses, firefighters, mechanics, retail workers, restaurant staff, I can't afford to live there anymore, can't afford housing. Near their jobs commute 2 hours each way, 4 hours daily in traffic, burning expensive gas to jobs that don't pay enough to live nearby. Or they leave entirely. 200,000 people last year left. California fled, gave up on the dream, moved to Nevada, Arizona, Texas, anywhere cheaper. The exodus. And Governor Newsom's response: everything is fine. Economy is great. Don't believe the numbers. California is thriving. Doing better than ever. Ignore reality. Trust me. Except the numbers don't lie. The families leaving aren't. Lying. The empty U-Haul. Lots aren't lying. California is. Not the Golden State. It is the unaffordable state. And the governor, he doesn't care because none of this affects him. Governor, what is the median home price in California? Newsom Consulting Papers, stalling admitted median. Prices vary significantly by region. Statewide, median approximate around $700,000 to $750,000, and the median household income approximately $80,000 to $85,000. So a family making median income needs to save about $140,000 for a 20% down payment, plus closing costs, plus moving costs. How long does that take for a median income family to save? Given their actual expenses, that depends on individual circumstances, roughly years. Give me a number, many years, 5 to 10. Potentially, meanwhile, they're paying rent, which is how much. For a 2-bedroom apartment in major California cities, again, varies by location. Average. Ballpark $2,500 to $3,000. So $30,000 to $36,000 per year in rent, while trying to save $140,000 for a house they can't afford. See the problem. The math. Brutal. Simple. Inescapable. Vance pulled out family budget analysis. The Rodriguez family, San Jose. He is a mechanic. She is a teacher's aide. Combined income $52,000, modest below median. But working class, honest work, good people. 2-bedroom apartment, rent $2,800 per month. That is $33,600 per year. Leaves them $18,400. He continued, calculating methodically gas for 2 cars, commuting to work $5,000 per year, groceries $8,000 per year, California prices, utilities $3,000 per year, health insurance copays and deductibles $2,000 per year. That is $18,000. Before car insurance, before phone bills, before clothing, before anything else. They're broke. Every month, Governor, not exaggerating, actually broke. Negative some months. Let it register real family, real numbers, real struggle. And they're not extravagant. No vacations, no fancy cars, no dining out. They don't go to French restaurants. They're just trying to survive. In the state, you govern the state with the highest taxes. The state that's supposed to help working families, but you're not helping them. You're crushing them. Newsom had no response. What could he say? The math was, math numbers didn't lie. Teacher salary in California averaged $65,000 to $75,000. Sounds decent, right? Until you realize median home in the Bay Area costs over $1 million. Teachers can't afford to live. In districts where they teach, they commute 90 minutes from Central Valley, 2 hours in bad traffic each way, daily burning expensive gas to teach children of parents who also can't afford housing. Everyone struggling, everyone commuting, everyone exhausted. Vance stood final round, going for total devastation. Nurses, police officers, firefighters, same problem. Essential workers, good salaries nominally can't afford California $1.9 million. California households are, quote, extremely rent-burdened, spending over 50% of income on rent. That is 2.8 million people vulnerable to homelessness. One bad month, one car repair, one medical bill, boom on the street. Part of your homeless crisis you spent $40 billion on connected it back. Everything connected. 1/3 of California households live in poverty or near poverty. 1/3 in the richest state, in the richest country in history. 1 out of 3 families struggling because your policies made everything expensive. Your taxes, your regulations, your failures, all increasing costs, all making life harder. Voice building now, intensity rising. And what are Californians getting for highest in nation? Taxes, homeless crisis, worse schools, mediocre, infrastructure crumbling, retail theft, rampant companies leaving. What services are these taxes? Funding? Where is the value? Where is the benefit? Rhetorical. Everyone knew no value, no benefit. Just waste 6 scandals. Governor, 6 failures, 6 betrayals. Let's review. One final time. Everything together. Your complete record, Vance. Counting on fingers slowly. Each one its own indictment. 1. French laundry elite hypocrisy while preaching sacrifice. $300 meals while Californians lost businesses. Rules for everyone else. Exemptions for you. 2 private schools for your kids while closing public schools. Your children learning normally. Other children falling years behind can afford elite education. Most can't. Hypocrisy. 3. $40 billion on homelessness crisis got worse. 36,000. More. Homeless people. Your agency stopped tracking. Spending state auditor says you lack accountability. Federal audit says you can't prevent fraud. Billions disappeared. Problem worsened. Failure 4. Business exodus. 74 headquarters left in 6 months. Tesla, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, Chevron, all gone. Highest taxes, driving them out, revenue collapsing. Budget surplus became massive deficit, economic death spiral. Your policies. 5. Retail theft explosion. Prop 47. Made theft essentially. Legal stores closed, workers lost jobs, communities destroyed. You did nothing for 10 years. Cowardice. 6. Cost of living nightmare. Working families can't afford. California teachers commuting 2 hours, families, broke every month, one-third living in or near poverty. While you dine at expensive restaurants and send kids to private schools, you don't feel what they feel. Don't struggle, like they struggle different California for you. Different rules, different reality. He paused the summary. Devastating, complete, undeniable, all connected. Governor, all your policies, all your failures, all your legacy, and the theme, the pattern, the through line. Connecting everything, different rules for different people. One, California, for elites like you, another California for everyone. Else you eat at $300 restaurants, while they choose between gas and groceries. You send your kids to private schools, while theirs fall years behind on Zoom. You live in luxury, while they struggle to survive. That is the California you built. Governor, that is what you've done. Vance removed his reading glasses, looked directly at Newsom. No papers, no notes, just truth. I grew up poor, Governor, Appalachia, Ohio. My mom struggled, and with addiction, my mama raised me. We barely survived. We could afford lived paycheck to paycheck. Sometimes not even that. I know what poverty looks like, what struggle means, what it feels like when the system doesn't work for you. Personal. Now. Real. Authentic. Joined the Marines because I wanted to serve. Wanted to earn my place. Prove myself. Went to Ohio State on the GI Bill. Worked my way through. Then Yale Law School, made something of myself. The American dream still works. Still possible, hard. Requires sacrifice, dedication, discipline, but possible, just not. In California, not under your leadership, not with your policies, your failures voice harder, now accusatory, because you've created a two-tier system. One tier for people like you, wealthy, connected, privileged, different rules. Private schools, expensive restaurants, no consequences. The other tier, for everyone else. Regular people who work hard, pay their taxes, follow the rules, believe in the system, and get crushed by costs they can't. Afford policies they didn't choose. Didn't cause but suffer from. Anyway, standing now, final statement. I've sat here for 3 hours. Governor, listened to your excuses, your deflections, your complexity arguments, your blame shifting, your pandemic excuses, your task forces, your promises, your apologies. And here is what I've learned, what this hearing proves, what the evidence shows, what every Californian watching now knows. Long pause. Let anticipation build. You don't take responsibility. You don't feel accountability. You don't understand regular people's struggles because you've never experienced them. You grew up wealthy. Stay wealthy. Live in a bubble where $300 dinners are normal, where $40 billion failures are acceptable, where hypocrisy is just another Tuesday, where rules apply to others, but not you, where consequences are for other people, where reality doesn't matter because it doesn't affect you. Voice rising to finish. But the people I've talked to today, Maria Chen, Sarah Mitchell, Marcus Thompson, Jennifer, Nguyen, the Rodriguez family, they're not in your bubble. They're living in the California. You created the real California, the one where people suffer, struggle, leave, and they're done with your excuses, done with your dime. Failures done with you. Newsom completely broken, sitting there, silent, can't speak, can't defend, can't explain. Nothing left, just sitting, diminished, defeated, exposed gallery, erupting standing ovation, thunder applause, sustained building people on their knees, feet clapping, shouting approval. Said it finally. Someone held him accountable. Finally, Vance let it continue. Stood there, nodded to the gallery, to the victims who'd testified, to Maria, Sarah, Marcus, Jennifer, to everyone who'd suffered vindication. Accountability. Truth finally raised his hand. Gradually, the quiet returned, but the energy remained victorious. Satisfied, justice felt real. Looked at Newsom one last time. Hearing adjourned within an hour. Social media exploded, clips everywhere. Every platform. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube short, versions, long versions, compilation edits, French Laundry, trending nationally, Gavin Newsom trending, JD Vance destroys trending, millions of views, tens of millions growing. Fox News went wall to wall. Sean Hannity devoted entire show. Tucker Carlson called it the political autopsy of the decade. Laura Ingraham played extended clips. Conservative media, loving it. Natural reaction expected. But not just conservative outlets. CNN covered it. Jake Tapper. Regardless of politics that was devastating the French, laundry photos were bad enough. But the $40 billion, the schools, the documentation, you can't come back. From this kind of evidence-based takedown, MSNBC ran segments, even sympathetic hosts struggled, defending Newsom, the facts too clear, the hypocrisy too blatant, the victims too real. 3 hours of testimony, all documented, all fact-checked, all true, can't spin truth. Newsom's office released statement, midnight, the place. Governor answered questions fully and transparently, though he, 12, disagrees with Senator Vance's characterizations. Nobody bought it. Video didn't lie. Everyone watched him. Stammer, deflect, collapse. Transparent meant visible, and what was visible was failure. California Democratic. Leadership went silent. Nancy Pelosi, no comment. Dianne Feinstein, no comment. Even his allies distancing quietly, carefully. But noticeably, nobody wanted association. National Democrats, panicking presidential speculation about Newsom dead. Instantly, completely can't run for president. After getting demolished on national television, can't recover from being exposed as hypocrite. While under oath, those 3 hours ended his national ambitions. Political analysts, unanimous career-defining disaster. Said one, he'll remain governor until his term ends. But his political trajectory stopped today, said another. The French Laundry moment was survivable. This wasn't by morning. 2 major California donors announced their redirecting contributions, supporting other candidates who better reflect California. Values translation. Abandoning Newsom publicly for everyone to see. His campaign staff updating resumes, quiet, private, but word spread. Rats leaving sinking ship happens fast. Loyalty evaporates when association becomes liability. Maria Chen sat in her Sacramento apartment watching clips on her phone, the parts showing her standing in the gallery. Vance telling her story. Newsom unable to look at her, her daughter asked, "Mom, did that really happen? Did that senator?" And actually tell them about the restaurant. "Yes, baby, he did." "Will we get the restaurant back?" Maria didn't answer immediately. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that justice isn't restoration, that accountability doesn't reverse past harm, that vindication doesn't pay back losses? Maybe she finally said, maybe something better 3 days later. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Usually spam. She almost didn't answer. Is this Maria Chen, the restaurant owner? Former owner? Yes. My name is David Park. I saw your story. In the hearing, I'm a private investor. Real estate development. I'd like to discuss reopening your restaurant with backing. Maria thought she misheard. Excuse me. I have a property in Midtown Sacramento. Good location. Foot traffic, I'd cover renovations, equipment, initial inventory. You'd operate it. We'd split profits. I think California needs more people like you. People who follow rules while others break them. Want to meet? She met him, reviewed terms, seemed real. Not charity, not pity business. Proposal, partnership, fair terms. but she hesitated, afraid, trying again after such devastation. What if it failed? What if she couldn't rebuild? What if trauma prevented success? Her daughter decided, "Mom, you have to try. You always said we don't give up, we keep going, right?" "Right. Keep going." Community helped word spread online. Maria Chen, reopening. Let's support her crowdfunding campaign. Launched not by her, by strangers who'd watched the hearing, felt her pain, wanted to help $50,000, raised from people who couldn't afford it. Workers, other restaurant staff, small donations, $5, $10, $25, adding up, because they'd been through it too, because Maria represented something: resilience, refusal to be destroyed. Hope Maria, reopened 4 months after the hearing. Chen's Kitchen, new location, smaller, different menu, but hers, her kitchen, her recipes, her dream, rebuilt. Opening night, 300 people showed up, line around the block, wait time, 2 hours, nobody left. They waited patiently. Some drove from Bay Area, others from Central Valley just to eat there, support her show. Solidarity. Why? Because Maria represented regular people, the ones who followed rules while leaders broke them, the ones who suffered while elites prospered, the ones who lost everything and still got up, still tried, still believed. When reporters asked about Newsom, Maria said simply, "He told us to stay home, to sacrifice. We did. He didn't. That's all I need to know about him." No anger, no rage, just quiet recognition of hypocrisy and determination to succeed, despite him, not because of him, despite. Marcus Thompson's story spread differently. Veterans organizations shared it. VFW posts, American Legion chapters, Marine Corps League. One of our own failed by bureaucracy, helped by hearing within a week. Marcus had 15 job offers. Construction companies, security firms, warehouses, all. Veteran-owned or veteran-friendly, all decent pay, benefits, stability. He chose construction. Orange County owner was Army vet. Iraq, same era, different service, same understanding. You start Monday, 40 per hour. Health, insurance, you need anything? You tell me. We take care of our guys. Marcus worked hard, showed up early, stayed late, learned fast. Within 3 months, promoted to crew lead. Within 6 months, foreman track. The skills were there, just needed opportunity, stability. Advocating, speaking at veterans events, homeless outreach programs, and city council meetings, his message consistent. The money is there, $40 billion, but it's trapped in programs nobody tracks. Agencies, nobody audits. Consultants, nobody supervises. Veterans don't need $40 billion. We need somebody to cut through bureaucracy and actually help give us paperwork, assistance, job placement, housing, deposit, simple things, not millions, thousands. But direct, fast, effective people listened, made. Sensed simple truth. Asked if Newsom's hearing changed anything. Marcus laughed. Not mean, just realistic. For me, yeah. My story got heard. Got me help for thousands. Still on street. Nothing changed. He's still. Governor agencies still don't track. Spending bureaucracy still loses paperwork. Hearing was great. TV didn't solve problem. Honest, unfiltered, true. But Marcus did something else. Started nonprofit veteran direct assistance. Simple. Model. Vet needs help. Fills out form, organization, evaluates. Provides direct assistance. Housing deposit, first month, rent, job training, whatever's needed. Average cost per vet, $8,000. Same amount. Private charity spent. Helping Marcus first year funding goal $80,000. Help 10 veterans, modest achievable, raised $400,000, helped 50 vets. All housed, all employed, success rate 94%. Model worked direct fast. No bureaucracy, no agencies, no consultants, just help. Simple, effective. Everything California's 40 billion wasn't. Jennifer Nguyen didn't get her job back. CVS didn't reopen Tenderloin store. Too dangerous, too expensive economics didn't work. That ship sailed gone. But Jennifer became voice advocate retail worker, representative someone had. To speak truth, she would testify at city council meetings. San Francisco, Oakland, Sacramento. State legislature in Sacramento, congressional hearings in Washington, always same message. Politicians make laws that sound compassionate. Don't incarcerate people for small crimes. Sounds nice, progressive, caring, but who deals with consequences? Store workers who gets threatened when shoplifters know there are no penalties? Store workers who loses jobs when stores close? Store workers politicians don't live with, and their policies, we do. Her message resonated because truth resonates. Real people, real consequences, real pain. Not abstract, not theoretical. Actual wrote op-eds. Sacramento Bee, San Francisco Chronicle, LA Times, Wall Street Journal. Each piece, same theme, soft on crime policies, hurt working people. Most the ones politicians claim to protect the ones who suffer when ideology meets reality. Conservative outlets loved her. Natural expected. But progressive outlets published her too, because what she said couldn't be dismissed. She wasn't conservative activist. She was liberal CVS manager, 20 years Democrat voter union member, pro-labor progressive credentials solid, made her critique devastating. I voted for these policies, she wrote, believed in them, thought they'd help. Then I watched them destroy communities, watched stores close, watched neighborhoods lose services, watched workers lose jobs. Being wrong hurts, but acknowledging it, that's how we learn. Fix mistakes, do better. Honest, humble, powerful Jennifer now. Works suburban CVS, safer location, less theft, but 30 minutes longer. Commute gas costs, more time costs, more another hidden cost of California governance. But she's grateful, has job. Many former co-workers don't asked about Newsom. Jennifer shook her head. 10 years. He did nothing for 10 years. Then, election pressure forced his hand. That's not leadership. That's politics. And workers paid price for his politics. Broader impact rippled outward. Proposition 36 passed, overwhelmingly November 2024. Rolled back. Portions of Prop 47 made theft. Felony on third offense. Voters not subtle about message 63%. Yes. Landslide, even San Francisco voted yes. Los Angeles voted yes. Liberal strongholds. Progressive cities all said, enough fix this. Enough ideology need. Security need. Accountability. Need consequences. Newsom claimed victory anyway. Absurd. Shameless. My retail theft legislation addressed issue. He said voters supported comprehensive approach. Nobody believed him. Everyone knew better proposition. 36 passed, despite Newsom. Not because of him, he opposed. It fought. It lost. Then claimed credit classic. Classic politician recall momentum, building 7th recall effort since Newsom took office. This one, different, broader coalition, Democrats included moderates. Independents, after hearing safe to criticize permission, granted emperor had no clothes. Everyone could say it now. Several Democratic state senators called for leadership change, privately, carefully, anonymously, but audibly, we need new direction. One told Politico, this isn't working, people leaving. Business is leaving. We need to admit it and fix it. New leadership, new approach, fresh start. Others echoed quietly, Background off-record but consistently message spreading. Newsom's time ending not immediately, but inevitably clock ticking, support eroding, foundation crumbling. He still governed, still held office, term ending January 2027, but effectively finished, diminished, neutered, no political capital, no credibility, no future, walking dead. Waiting for term to end Newsom's presidency ambitions. Evaporated completely instantly. That hearing killed them. Can't run for president after getting destroyed on national television. Can't recover from being exposed as elite hypocrite. Under oath, 3 hours ended. Decades of ambition no longer mentioned as Biden's successor. Not discussed as 2028. Contender names floated: Michigan, Governor Pennsylvania, Governor Commerce Secretary, Transportation Secretary, lots of Democrats. Not Newsom. His name, absent deliberately, obviously dead, gave fewer press conferences. After hearing avoided tough questions, staff tightly controlled appearances, friendly outlets only, softballs, pre-approved topics, safe spaces. When asked about hearing, called it political theater standard. Response: predictable, meaningless. Nobody asked follow-ups, no need footage. Spoke for itself. Everyone watched it multiple times. Clips everywhere. Forever. Internet never forgets. That hearing defined him permanently. Legacy set. Elite. Hypocrite failed. Governor couldn't manage crisis. Couldn't track spending, couldn't admit failure, couldn't take accountability. That's how history would remember Gavin Newsom. California still struggling, still bleeding, homelessness still rising, 193,000 by 2025, count up again. Businesses still leaving. Chevron announced complete withdrawal, not just headquarters, all California. Operations done, gone 145 years over. Families still fleeing. 212,000. Net migration 2025 getting worse. Accelerating death spiral. Exactly what Vance predicted. Exactly what evidence showed. Warnings ignored. Reality arrived anyway. Cost of access. Living still. Crushing gas. Still expensive housing. Still unaffordable. Groceries still outrageous. Working families still struggling. Nothing changed. Hearing didn't fix. California didn't solve crisis. Just exposed them. Made them visible, undeniable. Important, something fundamental, something democracy requires. Accountability matters. Evidence matters. Asking direct questions matters. For too long, Newsom governed in bubble. Friendly media, loyal donors, safe districts, nobody challenging narrative, nobody forcing hard questions, nobody presenting evidence, nobody holding him accountable. He did what he wanted, said what he wanted, faced no consequences, protected by party, by ideology, by media bias. Then Vance did what nobody else would for 3 hours with documents, with victims, with facts, with evidence. No ideology, no spin, just truth documented, proven, undeniable. And what emerged? The portrait of elite hypocrisy, failed policies, wasted money, broken promises, working families crushed by costs, while their governor dined at restaurants they couldn't afford, sent his kids to schools they couldn't access, spent billions on problems he made worse. Different rules for different people. Different California for elites, different reality for everyone else. This wasn't partisan politics, Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative. This was competence, accountability, basic responsibility, basic decency, basic fairness, and Newsom failed all tests completely. Obviously, definitively, California deserved better. Americans deserved better. People deserved leaders who live by same rules they impose, who feel same pain they cause, who take same risks they demand. who suffer same consequences they create, who actually fix problems instead of making them worse. That wasn't Gavin Newsom. The hearing proved it. The evidence showed it. The victims confirmed it. 3 hours of truth, under oath, on camera, forever. California watched America. Watched everyone saw finally, after years of excuses, years of failures, years of hypocrisy. Someone held him accountable. Someone asked hard questions. Someone demanded answers. Someone exposed truth. That's what democracy requires. That's what citizens deserve. That's what happened in that Senate hearing room. Accountability, justice, truth. And it felt good. Damn good. Finally, this is why accountability matters. Why questions must be asked. Why evidence must be presented. Why working people's voices must be heard. Why hypocrisy must be exposed. Why failures must have consequences. Why truth matters. If this gave you even a fraction of the satisfaction it gave Maria, Sarah, Marcus, Jennifer, and thousands of other Californians who've suffered under Newsom's failures, share this. Let people know what happened. Let people see the evidence. Let people hear the victims. Let people understand the truth. Drop a comment which failed politician needs the Vance treatment next, because Sacramento is not the only place that needs accountability. Washington is full of Newsoms. Chicago has got them. New York has got them. Every state capital, every city council, every level of government, people making rules they don't follow, spending money they don't track, creating crises they don't solve, living different reality than people. Faced questions. 2 real questions, hard questions, evidence-based questions. Under oath, on camera, with victims watching, with consequences, waiting. Subscribe if you want to see more, because we're just getting started. There are plenty more where Newsom came from, plenty more elite hypocrites, plenty more failed leaders, plenty more people who need exposure, accountability, justice. Stories like this matter. Truth matters, evidence matters, accountability matters. See you in the next one.